guys, welcome back to History Saver 1941, and today we're still in Savannah, Georgia, but we're on a location called Tybee Island. Now, during the American Civil War, Tybee Island, much like the Gulf Coast where I'm from in Alabama, held a strategic point for ports and Confederate ports during the American Civil War. Well, right behind me, you see another third system fortification that was here at Fort Pulaski. And right here is called the Demi-Lune, if I'm saying it right. It's French. But this is basically the main portion of the fort. This is where you come in, go out, and on this flat surface, it was about waist high at the time, and on the flat surface were artillery batteries. You can still see some remnants there. So on these artillery batteries, this is what protected the fort's entrance. And then if you look behind me in this direction, that's what your guns were looking towards. And it was all clear. They could see for miles. Well, here at Fort Pulaski, there was action. They were bombarded in one of the heaviest bombardments of the war of a fortification. Of course, nothing like Fort Sumter, but they were bombarded for several hours. And in hours, I mean days. And they finally surrendered. Well, we're going to go into Fort Pulaski and take a look at what it looks like today. So let's go through and give you a quick glimpse. So if you're ever here, come check out Fort Pulaski for yourself. So this is the Demi-Lune I was explaining to you. This is the main entrance of the fortification, and that's how it appeared during the Civil War. And it was surrounded on all sides by moat in a half moon shape, and this is how you come in and out of the fort.
Hi.
And you can still see some remnants of some of the original portholes here. Very well preserved site. And then, much like Fort Morgan, Fort Gaines, you've got the bastions with cannons in the corners. Being a third system fortification, these were established after the War of 1812 to help defend, because they saw a need after the War of 1812 to defend the coast. And these were built, and then they were only used really during the Civil War. But cool doors. You come in, I guess those doors are original, maybe. Don't really know. And then you walk in, and you're in the parade ground of Fort Pulaski.
Hi, History Saver fans.
Yeah, this is basically Fort Pulaski. You can see some of the damage along the wall from the bombardment that was here or there, and all the way around the top. And this is similar to Fort Morgan. I used to work at Fort Morgan, fun fact. So one of my jobs during the day was to sit in the room in the quarters and do living history. And my room looked exactly like this. Very hot, very humid during the summer. And this is pretty much how it would have looked here in the fort. And you got some pictures that they put on display here of what it looked like. Also, the CCC, Civilian Conservation Corps, was also here. So they lived in these as well. But this is basically how it will look for much of the Civil War, much of World War I, much of World War II, and the men who lived here and worked here. And yeah, pretty hot, but it's actually a lot cooler in these casemates than it is outside, believe it or not. I don't know why that is, but it is. And then you have a quartermaster, of course, who keep all the equipment and stuff here for the fort. You got lanterns and different things here. And there's cannon implements, different things that would be stored here. So pretty cool. So and you have officers' quarters. This is where all your officers, lieutenants, captains, all that would be. And it says that Pulaski was built over an 18-year period between 1829 and 1847. It sits on the Cockspur Island where the Savannah River meets the Atlantic Ocean, and was one of 42 forts built between 1825 and 1860 of the third system of fortifications. So that includes the forts at Fort Gaines, Fort Morgan, Fort Pickens, and different forts along the Gulf Coast, and this protect the Atlantic coast. So and what baffles me is these guys actually had windows, whereas Fort Morgan had a citadel in the middle. I don't think these guys had that, not exactly for sure. But this is the Federal Officers' Mess. After the Union took it over, this is where they would come in and have meetings, coffee, sit around, chat, eat.
How about you run over there?
And then you have the medical dispensary, your first aid hospital. So basically this is your infirmary. And then you've got the commanding officer's quarters here. And this is where Colonel Brown lived in here, and his wife kind of diddied it up a little bit. And yeah, they got a cat. But you can walk around in here. I've got some photos from the Civil War here. You can see some of the wives here in the photos. Pretty neat. And then you've got Casimir Pulaski, who the fort's named after, and he was referred to as the father of the American cavalry. He was born March 6, 1745, and he was born in Poland at the age of 21. He had a true military talent that was found out, and he fought in battles all across the European continent. In July of 1707, he came to Boston, Massachusetts, and offered his services to the American struggle for independence. Well, he was promoted to a brigade general and was placed in command of cavalry. In 1779, Pulaski, along with French and American troops, in an attempt to retake the city from Savannah for the British, he attacked on the 9th of October 1779, and the American and French forces failed to take the city. There was thousands of them killed, and probably only 50 British. There was not a lot of British. And Pulaski, in that battle, was mortally wounded by grape shot. He died 2 days later aboard the American ship, the Wasp. His remains are buried beneath a monument that bears his name in Monterey Square in downtown Savannah. So, there you go. That's who Pulaski is named after. A Polish military hero. So, and they got his photo hanging up in the commanding officer's quarters. If you want to come see that painting for yourself, well, you can come here and do so. But I would come when it's a little bit cooler. It's very hot during the summer. But that's totally up to you. And as you walk over here, you kind of get a good view of some of the artillery that was here inside of the fort. This is the powder magazine, and on April 11, 1862, during the bombardment, shells breached the opposite side of the fort and struck this wall. And when it struck the wall here, you know, it's a powder magazine. This is where all your gunpowder is stored. It is dark, it is eerie, but that's for a reason. It's to keep the powder dry. Once the shell struck, a couple of hours later, they said, well, we probably need to surrender this place. So they did. And 2 hours later, Fort Pulaski fell back into federal hands. And the Civil War for this fort, for the Confederate defense, was over. So, and here you are. This is what you really want to see, is the guns, 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 in the words of JD. And this is a flank howitzer. This weapon protects the rear of the fort against any attack by infantry. It had a crew of 3 men, 1 gunner, 2 cannoneers fired a piece. So 1 guy would actually be on the lanyard, 2 guys loading and venting the gun, and this was protecting the flank and right out of this window. So anybody trying to get in that drawbridge, well, would have to meet this cannon. You had these positions all around this bastion. And then you also have field guns sometimes stationed in here, like this bad boy right here, which is still operational. This will be the fort's demonstration piece. So you see field guns like this. This is a bronze barrel, and appears to be original. So dated 1844. You can always tell by looking on the barrel or right here on the side. Top of the fort. And show you again, like Fort Morgan, Fort Gaines, the stairs are really steep. Sorry.
You're fine.
So imagine having to crawl these things day in, day out. Not a good job. You tired?
Yes. I'm gonna go home now. Actually, go to the beach.
So this is the top of Fort Pulaski. You can still see some of the remnants of the artillery strikes all along the fort. And we're going to make our way right over here. So we talked about the cannonade of this powder magazine that is right below us where we just were. And I want to show you this because this kind of gives a little bit of evidence to what we were talking about when artillery struck this position. Here's some remnants of artillery strikes. So from the bombardment here, and again, it's very hot, so you just got to bear with me. It's the only thing about the South in August is the hottest time of the year. So here's some good stuff here on the landscape that you see here, which is pictured here. And it says, here at the mouth of the Savannah River, Cockspur Island, where we were, was a strategic military outpost before the Revolutionary War until after World War II. So armies cleared any vegetation and the ties left behind a drainage system to keep the land dry. So gives you a good view of what it looked like now compared to today. And you got a little bit of the damage from the bombardment that was here.
I'll go back down.
So we're going to walk right over here. We're going to make our way around the top of the fort. The rest of the casemates here are the same thing I just showed you, so you're not really missing out on anything. So just artillery positions. You got original carriage here. Pretty cool. So you would have gun positions lining the entirety of this wall. Again, right here is some more of the battle damage from the bombardment during the American Civil War. And took quite a few cannon hits. And then if you're wondering what these holes are on the top, that goes down to the fireplaces inside of the casemates. So like any other fireplace, it needs ventilation. And this is talking about why they wanted this. It was the key to the South. The Union Army took control of Hilton Head Island. But after the Battle of Port Royal Sound in 1861, and more than 15,000 Union troops landed on the island to establish a large military base. From hill to head, Union forces conducted military actions along the South Atlantic coast, and these troops supported Union efforts to blockade southern ports and establish footholds in South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. They also provided support for attacks on Fort Pulaski and Fort Sumter. So we're not far from Fort Sumter. And right by us, we got a cool model 1859 Seacoast carriage from the Phoenix Iron Works of Philadelphia, who made this for a Parrott cannon. So it was spit a 100-round projectile out of a Parrott, and it would go 8,500 yards. And you got some patents on here still, if you can see them. Made in Philadelphia. So Fort Pulaski served a vital role for the Union Army Strategic Command here. And this was the scene of a pretty hefty bombardment. And I'm going to show you guys a little bit more of the battle damage, and we're going to get out of here because it is very hot. We've got other places we got to go. And to be honest, I'm burning up. And yeah, so every casemate you see behind me inside of the fort is pretty much the same as we showed you. But so this is a memorial to the acts of Lieutenant Christopher Husky of the Montgomery Guards and Private John Latram of the Washington Volunteers, and it was the first volunteer regiment of the state of Georgia to come into service while under fire during the bombardment of April the 11th, 1862. They recovered the Confederate colors, which had been shot down, and raised the flag on this parapet. So this is where their acts of heroism took place. Their flag was shot down, and up under fire they got it and raised it back up. And you could just tell all the damage from the battle. This is the original damage. And then right here as well, you've got a little placard telling you what direction everything is. Tobby Island, Atlantic Ocean. So looking out that way will be the ocean. And then Hilton Head Island and all of that is straight in front of you. We're going to walk this way and take a look at a little bit more battle damage, and we're going to get out of here because we got other things to do, other places to see, and it's hot. So we're going to continue on, but walking across the top of the fort here, again, this is a third system fortification, and these were dotted all along the coast to protect the seaports, and that's the reason why it was so important in Mobile, and it's so important here in Savannah as well, because these forts are your first line of defense against a Navy bombardment, which we saw happen at the Battle of Mobile Bay. So during the Battle of Mobile Bay, Farragut and his command made their way into the bay and took the fortifications. But behind me, you can see some of the guns that sit here on top of the fort, and these were used in defense. And this is the portion of the fortification that was just absolutely battered, as you could tell in front of the guns here. And it took a hit. So we're going to go right here. We're going to look down, and all along this wall that you see in front of me on below, we're going to put up some photos here of what the wall looks like from the outside. A lot of that battle damage is still here. A lot of it remains. And yeah, it's a cool place. So you got to come check it out for yourself and check out Fort Pulaski. But don't do it in August. August is possibly the worst time you could do this in the South. Just warning you. June, July also bad, but a lot of people want to escape the winter. The winter here is actually nice. It's cool. You can kind of get around, and you can always find a way to stay warm. You can't find a way to stay cool. So yeah, come check out Fort Pulaski for yourself. And pretty neat place, pretty rich Civil War history here. And one more thing about the bombardment. April the 10th, 1862, the Confederates refused a formal demand of surrender because enemy guns were a mile away, more than twice the effective range of heavy artillery of the day. When Union troops opened fire, their new rifle cannons fired spinning projectiles that bored many holes in the walls here. By noon on the second day, the southeast angle gapped open, and the continued bombardment threatened the main powder magazine, which we just showed you. And because of that, they said, well, 2 hours later, we're surrendering. And 36 big guns on Tybee Island, 1 to 1.5 miles away, converged their fire on the fort. The bombardment proved that rifle cannon could destroy masonry forts. So they battered this thing until basically no end. And, well, she fell. So this is pretty neat. If you guys are wondering what's up underneath the floorboards, the wooden floorboards, well, this is this is it. So pretty cool little archaeological type area here, kind of showing you what it looks like and how the fort was constructed. And this is something that's new to me. I've never seen this, so pretty neat. So probably the last stop here that we're going to see is Colonel Almsted's quarters and surrender room. This is where he surrendered the fortification at the end of the bombardment inside of this room. So, and the whole garrison became prisoners. So up under this room, the fort fell. All right, so these works are probably from sometime during World War I, World War II. But they basically weave their way out to the bastions up top. You can see them right through there. So as we were coming in, you saw this position, but this is the tunnels that run underneath and come out to the guns. And very dark, but I can see in here with a camera. So we're going to continue on. And wow, motion activated light, that just scared the crap out of me. Okay, wasn't expecting that. But basically this is where you store your powder. As you can see, it's well protected. And apparently it's got motion activated lights. So that just scared the mess out of me. But if you come through here, you can go out to each of the artillery positions. I'm gonna tell you guys, getting out here to try to get pictures of this, it's not easy. But this is about far as we're going. It's boggy. But here you go. This is some of the portion of the battle damage you can see here, just a small portion. You can see the cannonball holes lining the fort here, and the artillery strikes. Pretty neat to see that. And the other side of the wall is even worse. Check it out for yourself when you come. It's a neat thing to see. So even here at Fort Pulaski, you can't get away from ghost stories. This is the Waving Girl. For 44 years, Florence Martis lived on nearby Elba Island with her brother, the lighthouse keeper, and no ship arrived from Savannah or departed from Savannah from 1887 to 1931 without her waving a handkerchief by day or a lantern by night. Throughout the years, the vessels in return watched for her and saluted her. So apparently this is where she waved from. Pretty neat. All right. Well, it's hot. It's humid. If the South in July isn't hell, well, I definitely don't want to go and see what it's like there. Hopefully I don't want to do that in the first place. But anyway, let's get out of here and head to the next location. For my little buddy, you hot? Well, what do you say? Keep preserving history, stay safe, and we'll what?
See you next time.
There we go. All right, so we'll see you later on. And hopefully in a little bit cooler climate.